There's a moment in life when everything you thought you knew is shattered. When everything you built starts to crumble. And you're left standing in the wreckage. It was 25 years ago when he walked out on me. Left me. Left us. My world turned upside down in the blink of an eye, and yet, in a strange twist of fate, years later, I found myself face to face with the man who had abandoned me. And this time, it wasn't just me he was facing, it was my entire world. I don't know if it's the pain that makes it so unforgettable, or if it's the fact that you never expect to see someone like that again. The one who tore your heart apart and left you to pick up the pieces. That's what James did to me. It wasn't like he just disappeared. No, he left me with a house, an empty bed, and the heavy burden of explaining to our son why his father wasn't coming back. I thought I'd never see him again. I thought I had buried him along with all the hurt, and yet, here I was, about to bring him back into my life. Hook 2. It was a secret, a meeting I never expected to have. But when fate gives you a second chance, it doesn't ask permission. You see, I made a life for myself after he left. I worked harder than anyone, built a company from the ground up, and created a family I was proud of. Life went on, and I thought I had moved past him. But when the opportunity to introduce him to my company came up, I felt the walls closing in. The man who had abandoned me was now coming back into my life in a way I couldn't escape. It was like a cruel joke, fate laughing in my face. How could I, after everything that had happened, bring him to my office? To my company? To my family? He was a stranger now. A shadow from my past. Yet, I couldn't deny the feeling that surged within me when I saw him again. The first time I saw James after 25 years was unnerving. I hadn't heard his voice in years, and I certainly hadn't seen him face to face in all that time. But there he was, standing in the lobby of my office, looking exactly the same. He hadn't changed. Not physically, at least. I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions rush through me. Anger, confusion, and something else I couldn't quite place. I wasn't the same person I was when he left, but seeing him brought it all rushing back. He wasn't looking at me the way he used to. His eyes were filled with something I couldn't quite read, and I couldn't help but wonder, did he feel any regret for abandoning us? Did he feel anything at all? I was torn between wanting to confront him, scream at him for leaving me alone to raise our son, and the desire to just act as if nothing had ever happened. There was something incredibly disorienting about the whole situation. I had done everything without him. I had built this empire from scratch, worked through the sleepless nights, the heartbreak, the challenges, and now I was supposed to just introduce him to my life again. My employees, my friends, my family, how could I explain this to them? But I had a secret I had been keeping all these years. A secret I wasn't sure I could ever share. When I saw James that day, I realized that we had both changed. I wasn't just a woman carrying the weight of the past anymore. I was a success. A woman who had built something incredible. But what if that was all I had to show for it? Would he see me as a failure? Or as a woman who had fought back? The most unexpected part of it all was that I had kept a part of myself for so long, something I hadn't even shared with my closest friends. I had never allowed myself to truly move on from him. I had built my life around the pain of his abandonment. And now, I wasn't sure if that was strength or weakness. I agreed to meet him at the office, but I was in control this time. It wasn't about the broken woman anymore. It wasn't about the woman who had been abandoned by the man who was supposed to love her. It was about the woman I had become. The woman who could stand tall in front of him and not let him define me anymore. But when he walked into my office, I felt the world stop. There was an awkwardness between us that I wasn't prepared for. He stood there, trying to smile, trying to say the right thing. But all I could think about was the devastation he had caused. The years he had stolen from me. But there was something else, too. Something I couldn't ignore. There was a spark in his eyes. something that made me wonder if he was regretting his decision to leave. I didn't know what he expected from me. But I knew this: he wasn't going to get the woman he had walked away from. I led James into the conference room where we were having a meeting with some of my biggest clients. I had to put on the face of professionalism, but inside, my heart was racing. I couldn't tell if I was excited, angry, or confused. It was like a cocktail of emotions swirling inside of me. As he sat across the table, I could feel his eyes on me. Not in the way a colleague looks at another, but with something more, something deeper. It was almost like he was studying me, trying to figure out who I had become. But the most shocking part was yet to come. What happened next would change everything. Later that day, after the meeting had concluded, I found myself alone with him in the hallway. There was a quiet moment between us, one of those moments where words were unnecessary. "I can't believe how much you've changed," he said, his voice low, almost in awe. "You're incredible, Laura." I could hear the sincerity in his voice, but it also felt like an attempt to get back into my good graces. I looked at him, eyes narrowing. "You think so?" I asked, unable to hold back my skepticism. "After everything you did, you think I'm incredible?" He flinched, and for the first time in years, I saw something in his eyes that I hadn't seen before: regret. Real, raw regret. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment when I could finally speak my truth. I took a deep breath, feeling all the anger, the pain, the years of wondering why he left, all of it bubbling to the surface. "You don't get to walk back into my life, James. Not after everything you put me through. Not after everything I had to fight for." His expression softened, and he reached out like he wanted to touch me, but I pulled back. "I don't want your sympathy. I don't want your apology." For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I used to love. The man who promised me the world and then walked away. But this man, this stranger standing in front of me, wasn't the same. He couldn't be. What happened next will stay with me forever. The conversation took an unexpected turn when James reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, worn-out picture. It was of us. From when we were younger. From when we were happy. "I never stopped loving you, Laura," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I was selfish, and I'm sorry." Those words, those simple words, took me by surprise. I had spent 25 years telling myself I didn't need him. That I was better off without him. But in that moment, I realized that maybe I wasn't as strong as I thought. Maybe, just maybe, there was a part of me that still cared.